moved quickly in Tunisia and Egypt before, well, they are moving very, very fast indeed here in Libya. We've had protesters claiming they are in control of several key cities. It started in Benghazi, of course, spreading across parts of the country. The army now moving swiftly to crush the uprising, and as Shuli was saying in the last few minutes, reports that the Libyan authorities have cut all landline and wireless communication in the country. Those are some of the latest lines. Here's other recent developments for you as we've got them. Live ammunition, apparently. Reports of this live ammunition being fired on protesters in the capital, Tripoli. Also reports that the military fighter jets are being used to strike protesters, which, if confirmed, would be an extraordinary escalation of things on the military's part. And international reactions, well, the British Foreign Minister William Hague, who says he has information, the British have information, that the Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi has fled the country and is on his way to Venezuela. But a senior official in the Venezuelan government has denied that report. Still with us here, and we thank you for staying with us, Salman Sheikh from the Brookings Centre here in Doha. Look, as I described it just a moment before that, if you thought things moved fast in Tunisia and Egypt, if what we're hearing is true, this is going very, very quickly indeed.
Yes, and I would say it's going very, very wrong. If we are getting these reports of firing on innocent protesters using military aircraft and the like, this is another level at which we are seeing innocent protesters being attacked in Tripoli and in Libya.
I just keep thinking about lessons learnt, though. If you look at this sort of force being used, even if these reports prove to be unconfirmed, the force that's already been used, you would think anyone who saw what happened in other parts of the Middle East would think we've got to take a different approach here.
Yes, you're right.
You would think.
You would think, and we're playing to a similar playbook, though this seems a more lethal episode than even the previous ones. And I'm afraid for the regime, though not for the people of Libya, it will probably result in the same sort of outcome as we've seen in Tunisia and Egypt.
Just look at the pictures we're looking at now, these huge protest numbers, fire in the street. Does it shock you? As I look at it, I find it quite incredible. I mean, as I keep referring back to other countries, other events, that was shocking enough. This is just, it's taking on a life of its own.
Well, it's shocking that it's Libya, a repressive regime where you've thought that maybe this can't happen. The people are too fearful. But as we've seen now from the knock-on effects of elsewhere, people have cast aside their fear in order to try and reclaim their rights and their dignity and justice in their society.
Is it the use of force that we were talking about? Is it almost, being very careful to use this word, but habit? When you're in countries where force has been used to repress people for so long, it's almost all they know. The leaders I'm talking about.
You're absolutely right. This is a habit. This is really what they do know. It's a reflex. And what other instruments can they use when people decide after many, many years that these regimes are not representing them and shouldn't be representing them? They've lost their legitimacy.
Right. Salman, stay with us. We'll be coming back to you throughout the course of the evening if events continue to develop at this pace. Talked about international reaction earlier on, because obviously the relation which various countries have with Libya is key as this begins to escalate. Let's start with Britain. Rory Challen's outside the British Foreign Ministry. I think we can go to him now. We can. Rory, how are you? Tell me what's been happening today as far as British reaction goes.
Well, the British reaction today has been very, very strong. William Hague, the Foreign Minister, out in Brussels today, he used words like deplorable and unacceptable to describe what's going on in Libya at the moment. And also the Libyan ambassador was summoned to the Foreign Office, where I'm standing in the UK, to basically get a dressing down from diplomats here. And they would have used very similar language to what William Hague was using when he spoke earlier on. I apologise, we don't have the audio from William Hague there. Now, there are unconfirmed rumours that the Libyan ambassador to the UK has since resigned since he came here and was spoken to by the diplomatic staff there. Now, the British government have been asking the Libyans for certain things, certain specific things. What they want is an end to the violence immediately and an investigation into the killings that have happened there so far. And they also want a specific commitment from Gaddafi and his government to political and economic reform. Now, William Hague also earlier on was saying that he might have seen some information that did suggest that Gaddafi was possibly on his way to Venezuela. Now, that is also unconfirmed, and there has to be a certain amount of delicacy when dealing with information of that nature, but that is what William Hague was saying earlier on.
I wonder, Rory, a bit of background, if you wouldn't mind. It's just good to put Britain into context with Libya, what sort of relationship it's had in the past, importantly, and therefore what sort of sway, if I can use that word, that it might hold.
Well, Britain has been a fairly good friend of Libya for the last few years. If you cast your mind back to about 2007, the deal in the desert, as it came to be known, between Tony Blair and Muammar Gaddafi, now that raised eyebrows all over the world, particularly in America, where it was seen that doing a deal like that with a person like Gaddafi was an unwise thing to do. The US ambassador to the UK criticised the UK for that relationship only 24 hours ago. It was thought always at the time that dealing with Gaddafi was essentially doing something that was in the interests of business, in the interests of Britain's oil interests, rather than in the interests of the EU or the wider international community. The British government was always saying, no, this isn't just for us, this is for all of you as well, because Libya has now committed to give up on nuclear weapons. It has also been brought into the international fold. It's making big progress. It will start helping the EU with things like illegal immigration. But now we're seeing words such as deplorable and unacceptable, rather than those words of optimism and hope that we were seeing just a few years ago.
Rory, thank you for that. That's Rory Challens outside the British Foreign Office in London, explaining some of the background of the relationship between those two countries. And now these lines coming out, the words that William Hague, the British Foreign Minister, has used: deplorable, unacceptable, to describe what is going on in Libya at the moment. So let's go to Libya right now. On the phone, I hope we've got Adam, who is in Tripoli, a protester who's been out on the streets over the last few days. Tell us about what's happening now where you are. We've heard reports of the military being involved with jets and live ammunition.
Correct. That's correct. Actually, they've been firing upon people in the Green Square area, protesters, as well as claiming on state TV that these people are no more than thugs and gangs. We also have people on the ground, military, I believe, that are firing indiscriminately into crowds, young boys, older men, whoever's there. A contact also told me the same exact thing. A separate part of the center of the city had called us and let us know that it was going on right outside his apartment. So, I mean, this right now is happening, along with a busload of new mercenaries. Sorry, a plane full of new mercenaries has just landed, apparently, and is going to be out on the streets tonight doing more drive-bys. Okay, so
these are reports you're hearing from different parts of the city. Can you tell me exactly what you've seen today, violence-wise, unrest-wise?
Drive-bys, mercenaries driving by. They're audible. You can hear them zooming by in their Land Cruisers, firing their guns. They don't really care who they hit. They're just looking for a target. It's basically